So the thing when coming up with a story, you have to come up with what's called a synopsis. And that's, usually, in some cases, it can be up to a page that explains a synopsis. And in that synopsis, you want to try and explain the story. The one thing that always, in some people's cases, they don't really focus too much on is the ending, though. It's always setting up the majority of the story.
Always like...
And that's always where the majority of the focus gets onto. So when people are in that mind, coming up with the story, they're focusing so much on the first part, coming up with that idea. And in some cases, that end part can almost be forgotten about. And it's typical, it happens quite a lot. And that's when we see these films that start off so well, is because they get so much momentum behind the script writing, coming up with the story, getting, the funding and all that sort of stuff, that they usually get to a point. And if they haven't planned out that ending part great, then we find things happening like, reshooting the ending and rewriting the ending and trying to make that ending work. And it's hard because you're trying to sum up everything, all the questions that you set up at the beginning of the film, you need to answer them as best you can. And it's a hard thing to do. But it's always a good idea when coming up with a story is to flip it.
Yeah.
Figure out what your message is going to be and how you want to finalize that. And then sort of, work backwards and back engineer a story. And then you can focus on that beginning. And once you already know what your ending is, then it's a matter of making a beginning that works equally as well. And because people are going to be asking you about your concept, you need to work those out first.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to answer those elements. You've already worked out the end, though. And then you're forced to answer the beginning. And then, therefore, you have ticked all of those boxes. You've hopefully come up with a beginning, middle, end that is all equally as strong.
Yeah, makes sense. And I can see why so many people get carried away, especially film students. So they get so excited about this little idea or big idea, and then it's like, well, what are you saying with it? Where are you going with it?
Yeah.
Ultimately, what's the end goal?
Yeah.
And it's always like, I just wanted to focus on that one part.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's why short films work so well, I think, because, you know, you only have to come up with that initial idea, and it's kind of just like, how do you make that interesting without having to wrap it all up and answer all these questions? And
especially when you get students or anyone really who wants to make a film and they get so caught up on one element, as you're saying. It could be, it's going to look so cool, we're going to have this fight scene and all this stuff's going to happen.
Always this one thing.
And you focus so much on this one certain element that you're almost creating a story to fit into that thing. And we see this in Hollywood as well.
Yep.
All the time with a lot of films. They find an excuse to get to the action. Whether it's a film like, I don't know, like
Transformers 2, 3, 4, 5,
50
Fast
million.
and Furious 1 to 9, G.I. Joe 1 and 2,
2012, all these sort of stories that
big
are like
budget Hollywood films, really.